I must admit, this was a bit of a low point in the whole project. This still was our functional bathroom that we had to use every day. Our kitchen was kind of at the front here. And of course, we had an 8-foot drop to the side of the toilet. Hiya folks, welcome back. I hope you're all well and keeping safe and all that good stuff. Last time, we had a little bit of a chat about this Victorian terraced flat, a Tyneside flat, and it was quite a big renovation project that we did on this. And last time I gave you a quick tour of the property, showed you the state it was in when we first bought it, and of course I asked for a few of your comments for what you would end up doing with a property like this. There were some really good ideas in there, and in this video I'm going to show you exactly what we ended up doing, and you'll get the big reveal of the finished project towards the end. So just as a quick reminder, we bought the property at auction. It wasn't bought with the intent of doing it up and selling it on. We needed literally somewhere to live, but that's another whole story. And just to give you a reminder, this is what the plans were of the property, the existing plans when we first bought it. So you come up from street level here, up onto the landing. It's a first floor flat. You've got bedroom 1, bedroom 2, living room, kitchen at the back there, and then you've got this little offshot right at the back of the property with a bathroom in and this awkward little staircase going out into the backyard as well. Some really good suggestions of what to do with the place. Quite a few people suggested swapping the bedroom with the living room, and I can totally get where you're coming from with that, because then you'd have your living room at the front there and you'd have the nice fireplace and all that sort of thing. The only problem there is if you've got the bedroom at the back here, in order to get to the bathroom, which is right at the back here, you would have to go through that bedroom, which would be not very practical. And of course, a lot of people mentioned about going up into the loft as well, and that was something we were very interested in, and we actually paid for structural engineer plans to get drawn up to go into the loft. But unfortunately, the building regs side of things for going up into the loft would have just made it prohibitively expensive. Now, don't hold me to this on the building regs, because A, this was quite a long time ago, and B, I'm kind of going from memory here. But if I remember correctly, there had to be a fire barrier between the upstairs flat and the downstairs flat if you were going to turn the upstairs flat into what was effectively a 2-storey dwelling. So if you imagine, there is effectively no fire barrier between your upstairs and downstairs flats at the minute. You've got wooden floorboards, wooden joists, wooden laths, and then you've just got like the rubbish kind of plaster that would be on the ceiling in the downstairs flat. So you would have to resolve that problem, and it's not a particularly easy thing to resolve. You would probably have to either put additional plasterboard on all of the ceilings in the downstairs flat, which you don't own, or you would have to take all of the floorboards up and put fireproof material down underneath the floorboards to create that fire barrier that I was talking about. I think there was other options in terms of like sprinkler systems and stuff like that, but basically it was just going to be prohibitively expensive. And I think there also had to be a noise barrier as well, if I remember rightly. I'm sure when I spoke to building regs, they said that there had to be measures put in place to significantly reduce noise between what would now kind of become a family home, where you might have kids running about and all that sort of thing. So if you were to do that, you would have to have some sort of noise barrier between the upstairs flat and the downstairs flat. I think I'm kind of remembering off the top of my head here from like 16 or 17 years ago. Either way, unfortunately, going up into the loft was a non-starter, but I did get structural engineer plans drawn up. I'll talk about that in a minute. And of course that raises this very valid question of what about all these other properties who seem to have Velux windows on the roof and dormers and all that sort of thing? How come they've been allowed to do it? Well, the answer is, in almost all cases, these are houses and not flats. It's the flat issue that means that you can't go into the loft. And if people have gone into the loft in flats, then they've either done it before the regulations came in, or they've done it illegally, or another possibility is that it's just done out for storage and they've put Velux windows in, but they couldn't advertise or sell that as a habitable space. And that would come up when the legal checks were being done if the property was ever getting sold. So what did we end up doing? Well, the first person who got it pretty much spot on, Chris Stevens, well done. He said, fix the access at the back. Looks like the neighbours have raised the door up to first floor level. Build out a balcony in steel with access stairs down the side of the yard, giving space for parking and some outside space on the balcony for a table and chairs. Unfortunately, and I'll talk about the building regs for the stairs in a little bit, there wasn't enough room to have anything other than a walkway. But yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. Where the current bathroom and stairs are would be a kitchen with French doors onto the balcony and open plan into the lounge. You can't really do open plan into the lounge, unfortunately, because it's on a different level, and that's obviously a structural wall at the back there, so you're a bit limited on what you could do there. And plus, cost obviously was a factor as well. Briefly mentioned last time, we were hoping to do all of this for around 15,000. I knew that was going to be a challenge. But yeah, spot on with everything else, and thanks again to everyone else for your comments. Awesome. So just before I take you through everything we ended up doing, I will briefly explain I did all of the work myself. Please don't copy anything I've done or any of my unsafe working practices. I'm just showing you a project that I ended up completing. I'm not saying this is the way it should be done. Also, bearing in mind we were living in the property throughout, and to pre-warn you, this was in the days when I had hair, so don't be scared about that. As a little bonus for Patreon supporters as well, if you're wondering how much this project cost, you'll have to head over to Patreon for that, and I've given a full breakdown of everything down to the last nail of how much this renovation cost. And there's another separate video where I go through the structural engineer plans in detail as well. So if you want to know how much it cost, or you want to have a look at the structural engineer plans, which cost a fortune, by the way, you'll need to head over to my Patreon. Everything that we did was checked through local building regs at the time, and there was planning permission needed for some of it as well, and we had to get local neighbour consent as well. So we ticked all the boxes on that side. Anyway, so what we ended up doing. Bedroom 1 and bedroom 2 were pretty much fine the way they were. They just needed a lick of paint and new carpets, and they were pretty much done. So the first major thing to sort out really was getting the hallway and loft things sorted out. And as I say, we ended up getting structural engineer plans done for the loft, and we kind of did some of the things on the plans, but definitely not all of them. I'll go over that on Patreon in a bit more detail. So for starters, I took out that pointless privacy door in the hallway, and it just opened up the downstairs hallway a little bit. So that privacy door came out. In the scheme of things, that was a relatively easy job. And then I headed up into the loft, and that was a fun job, as you can imagine. So, lots of lath and plaster had to come down, and the main reason we had to do this, A, was to get a bigger loft hatch in, because the loft hatch that was in here when we first moved in, you can just about see it there. That was the loft hatch there. It was tiny. So yeah, knocked the ceiling out so I could actually get up into the loft and see what was going on. Again, that is the edge of the old loft hatch just there at the top there. It was ridiculously small. The main reason that I've ended up having to do the work I'm about to show you is because the existing ceiling joists were tiny and not big enough to hold any kind of weight in the loft. And I just wanted to really do the loft, or part of the loft, for storage. So I'm not sure if you remember from the plans I showed you last time, but we've got this great big beam going all the way from the front of the house to the back of the house, like about 10 metres long or thereabouts. So that was in two sections bolted together in the middle, and that beam was absolutely solid. It was supported by various walls underneath, and it wasn't going anywhere. So that gave me a firm fixing looking from this side on the left hand side to put some joist hangers onto that, and then on the right hand side there I've got joist hangers going straight into the brickwork with wall bolts holding those in. As you can see, lots and lots of joist hangers, and that was actually when I just purchased my Makita SDS drill, absolutely essential for this job. So having some proper joists across this section of the loft just meant that you could store pretty much anything up here, and it gave a nice fixing point for putting a nice big loft ladder in it as well. So there's the opening for the new loft hatch that I'm putting in there. You can kind of see it. Sorry about the quality of the photos, it's not great, but you can kind of see the opening there. And then that's the loft hatch in. And then it was just a question of lots of cosmetic work to tidy up the plasterboard and plaster afterwards. That was it all kind of tidied up from the bottom side. I think we paid a plasterer to do this. I didn't do that plastering. And again, that was the bottom doorway, just the plaster tidied up there as well. I'll show you some final pictures of the loft later on, but it was just done for storage. And as I say, just that one kind of third section of the loft from front to back. So, onto the living room, and the main thing that I wanted to get done in the living room was to remove this pointless doorway from this cupboard into the living room, because you could never get access to it anyway. So I wanted to basically block up that doorway. If you remember, there's a consumer unit and electric meter on that kind of partition thing at the moment. So I wanted to get rid of that. And because we're a big fan of watching movies and music and all that sort of thing, I wanted a little nook in this cupboard, kind of here, that I could keep all of the AV gear in. So first task was to basically rip out that doorway. That's it, just tidied up a little bit. I wanted to take out this bit just up to the chimney breast, up to that solid bit of wall there. You can see all the lath and plaster, it's just awful. Again, you can see where the consumer unit is on that little partition there. That partition had to go. I obviously don't condone leaving electric meters or consumers dangling by their cables. And then just building in the little nook for all the AV gear here. So I boarded that little nook out and also fitted the stud work for holding the new plasterboard that's going to be going on that wall. There's a very good reason why I don't do plastering. It's just not my thing. I can't do it. This took me like weeks. Honestly, it took such a long time, and it was okay, but it wasn't a great job at the end of it. So anyway, here's inside the cupboard, and there's an access kind of area at the back of that little nook so that I can get cabling in for all the AV stuff. And of course, once that wall was actually built and plastered, then we had somewhere to put the electric meter and consume unit, which is a bonus. Back in the days when you didn't have ridiculous regs to say that the consume unit had to be like 1.5 meters off the ground or whatever. And this was just feeding all of the wiring through for the AV setup. And yes, that is a DCC player in the middle of all that. The kitchen became the bathroom. Not straightforward, because that involved having to bring a soil stack out of the back here, along here, all the way down here, around here, to the soil stack and drain at the back of the offshot. Bearing in mind we're in an upstairs flat here, we can't run any of this sort of stuff under the floors. So here's a plan of the bathroom. We've got the windows at the top here, so it's upside down from what you've just seen. There's a soil pipe coming out at the back here, air admittance valve inside the bathroom, toilet there, hand wash basin over here, double shower in this corner here, and then a full-size bath at the back as well. So really good sized bathroom. Toilet's going over on this side here, and one of the first jobs was to core drill a big hole through this wall using this beast of a drill here, which just shown it for scale against my trusty Makita SDS, which was brand spanking new back then. Yeah, that was a big drill. And that was used to core drill through this wall here for the soil pipe. In all honesty, in hindsight, I wouldn't bother using a core drill for this again. It was an absolute pain in the backside. And on the other side of the wall, the bricks literally just kind of fell out anyway. So it was a bit pointless, but it gave us a nice neat hole on the inside anyway. You can just about see there on the left, that's the waste from the bath and shower, which just go through to this hopper here. I did actually have to move this rainwater down pipe as well, because it was exactly where the soil pipe was coming out, so I had to move that as part of the job. Luckily we're on combined sewers in these old houses, so it was fine running the bath water into the rainwater hopper. You wouldn't be able to do that on modern houses, because generally your rainwater needs to be kept separate from your wastewater. We've got the waste from the kitchen going into the top of it there. Little service hatches all the way along, just in case there was any blockages or anything like that. And we've got a little service hatch on that bend there, and that was it all more or less done for the soil pipe. And then onto the bathroom itself. These were just the heating pipes for the towel radiator. Main hot and cold supply coming in there. Getting this corner ready to put the shower in. You can see I've got everything marked up where the plumbing's going to be going and how far the shower's going to come out the wall and all that sort of thing. For some reason, I went ridiculously overkill putting ply into the wall to support the sink and the toilet. Probably a little bit over the top there, but, you know, belt and braces. One thing you've got to bear in mind here, with this being an upstairs flat, I didn't want any possibility of leaks causing problems for the downstairs flat. So I put ply down and sealed around all of the edges just in case there was any water leaks or anything like that. We're looking here in the corner where the bath's going to be going, and you can see the supply pipes there for the towel radiator now embedded in the wall. And again, just for waterproofing reasons, I couldn't run the waste pipes for the shower underneath the floor. I needed to keep everything above floor level. So I raised the shower up on a little plinth, and that gave enough room for getting a waste pipe underneath the shower there and round the corner to the black waste pipe sticking out the wall there. You can kind of get a better idea here of all the supply pipe work going in for the sink and the toilet and the shower. So I've measured out the tiling so I know I'm not going to get any joins in awkward places or anything like that. And I've just put these 2 bits of wood in to give me a perfect 90 degrees to work on, and a bit of a starting point really for the tiling. Aqua panel and all the framework in for the shower itself. So because I don't want tiles to finish in a half tile at the top, and obviously this is the height that I want the tiles to come up to, I've needed to put a piece of wood in kind of at the bottom there that I can work off to get all the tiling nice and level, nice and straight and coming up to the right height, and then I can do all my half tiles at the bottom of the wall there. Framework and bath going in there. And then at this point, it's all just the last bits and pieces. Shower screen needs to go in, the floor's all done, all the last bits of trim, all the boxing and all that sort of thing needs to be done. We also got new windows fitted as well at the back of the house, but we left the original sash windows at the front of the house because they were fine. Then onto this off shot at the back of the house. And what we figured was, if we could get rid of this staircase here, obviously we've got a staircase taking up nearly a quarter of this space here. And we figured if we could get this staircase moved to the outside, it would resolve a number of problems. So what we wanted to do, let me just change to a different colour. What we decided to do was build a metal staircase coming out at the back of the property here, and then coming down on the kind of left-hand side as we're looking at it there. So we'd have this little landing area, and then that would give us this great big space here as a nice decent size kind of galley kitchen. So if you remember, this is what that offshot was like, and we had this partition down this little middle section here, and there was also a kind of covered area here, and no idea why, probably just to make it easier to paint and to cover this crack up, so obviously had to take all that out. I'll explain why I've had to knock a hole in the wall here in a minute. Some of you have probably already guessed. So just to explain what's going to be going on here, what I need to do is create a floor here that covers up this area. That door obviously is going to go away, and then at the top here we need a doorway, a new doorway that heads out onto the new metal staircase that we'll be putting on the back of the house there. Relatively straightforward. There's not going to be a lot of weight on the top here because there's nothing there really. I will obviously be putting a lintel in, and I'll show you that in a minute. So there'll be a lintel going across here, and then it's just a question of putting the new door and door frame in. First task is to cut out this opening here. So obviously, because we're trying to work here above just a big gap, so I just built a little, very dusty in that shot, so I just built a little plinth here, wall bolted in with joist hangers into the wall there, and just sitting on this main joist that's running front to back here, and it just gave us somewhere to kind of stand while operating the still saw and getting this brickwork out. Plus we needed somewhere to put the acro props in before putting the lintel in. As you can see, it was a little bit dusty. So the doorway is going to be going kind of here-ish. And as you can see, there's not a lot of weight going to be on top of this. So, you know, you've only got this one little section of brickwork here, so it doesn't need to be like the biggest lintel in the world. I'm sure a wooden lintel would have been absolutely fine, but we went with a concrete one anyway. You can just about see the temporary plinth there that's going to be supporting the acro props. And then you can see we've got the acro props in just to support that section of wall while the lintel's going in. That's resting on that temporary kind of plinth. Obviously, we've got no back door at this point, and we're still living in this property, so this still has to be a functional bathroom, believe it or not. So the door is kind of temporarily screwed and held into that position just in case we get like broken into or something. And then it was just a question of bricking up that downstairs doorway. You can see it's all tied into the existing brickwork, and obviously no cavity in an old property like this. So it's all a question of timing now, because I still need access out the back of the property into the backyard, because I've got building materials and all sorts. So at the point that the bottom is bricked up, I need the top to be open so that we can still get out. And plus I'm using a lot of the bricks all cleaned up to brick up the bottom section so that the bricks match as well. So we're kind of doing this in parallel. And that was that all done and dusted. So the bottom's all bricked up. I've got the doorway in, lintels in, all just needs tidied up now. Job's a good one. Oh, and we've got a new water supply put in as well. We've got that mould in from the back lane, because previously it was just an old lead water supply that fed the downstairs flat. So whenever the downstairs flat ran the taps, it meant our water went off. So we had a brand new supply put in. Obviously that's just kind of temporary, but you can see the blocked up doorway now. So, joist hangers into the brickwork on the left, a new joist running all the way from front to back. That rests on the brickwork at the back there. And at the front here, it's hard to see, but it's bolted through into this big joist that goes all the way front to back here. And that's why I knocked that hole in the wall earlier. I wanted to see how these joists over here were held up. And it confirmed my thinking that there was a nice big joist running front to back that I could attach another new joist into. This was a low point in the whole project. That is still our functional bathroom that we had to use. This was our kitchen at the front here, and that's an 8-foot drop to the right hand side of the toilet there. Anyway, new joists in, nice and solid. And of course, one of the tricky things if you're trying to live in a property while you're doing this kind of work is the timing of making sure that you've always got a bathroom and you've always got a kitchen. And at this point I was still working on the bathroom, so I couldn't get rid of the bathroom that we've got here yet, and we didn't have a kitchen because the kitchen that we did have was now becoming a bathroom. So I had to temporarily move the old kitchen into this, what will be the new kitchen, just so that we've got somewhere to kind of cook and do the dishes. Oh, how we laughed. Obviously you can see the new soil pipe working its way around the property into the soil stack at the back. And obviously that is my attempt at bricking up a doorway. So once that door was in, we were ready for the staircase contractors to come and fit the metal staircase. And of course that happened to be on one of the coldest days of the year. It was snowing, and you can just about see the framework of the kind of balcony. It's not really a balcony, the upper landing going in there. I'll be honest, this was another low point. You can see we've finally got some nice new windows in the kitchen as well. And at this point the bathroom must be finished, because I've finally been able to get the old bathroom ripped out. You can just about see the landing for the staircase fitted out at the top there. Getting some insulation in under this little void here as well. We also really wanted spotlights in the kitchen, and the only way that we could really do that was to lower the ceiling, basically fit a new ceiling, and that gave a little void that we could get all the wiring and whatnot in. And it also gave another little space that we could get insulation into as well, because these offshots tend to get quite cold because, as I say, it's not cavity walls and you don't have the heat from adjoining buildings keeping you warm either. And that was us more or less done. Before I show you all the final pictures of the property, I'll just explain quickly. We couldn't change the size of this window here, so we had to have like a lower section of worktop here, but it actually worked quite well. It made quite a nice feature in the kitchen when you see the final pictures. Also, just to explain for the staircase, so this was the new staircase that we had fabricated, a steel staircase on the back of the property there. I ended up doing all the plans myself, but I got a structural engineer to do calculations that building regs needed to sign off on. It was a real challenge fitting this staircase in, because you're kind of limited on your landing size and how wide the staircase can be and things like that. I'm not going to go into the building regs side of designing staircases, and I would always advise that you get a professional to do that for you. Anyway, I'll show you what the whole thing looked like when it was finished. So obviously this is what the backyard started life like. We had this doorway out kind of halfway up the wall. You can just about see the staircase on the right hand side there. Please ignore all the beer bottles, don't judge. What I'm doing here, apart from getting sunburnt, we decided that we were going to be putting gravel down in the backyard, and that meant just making a concrete lip onto the whole surround of the yard so that gravel didn't basically just fall out into the street. So I'm basically just building a concrete ramp up into the backyard, and also it means if anyone wants to park a car in the backyard they can. So that was it before. And then afterwards, that's it with the staircase all in. And we've got this nice kind of chill out area with the gravel. You can just about see the lip I was talking about that I made to stop the gravel all falling out. We've got a roller shutter fitted as well to give us a nice big opening into the backyard. I have to say I was over the moon with the job that the staircase fabricators did. If you want to hazard a guess as to how much that cost, pop it in the comments below and I will explain it all over on Patreon. The hallway, if you remember when we first bought the property, it was pretty awful. We ended up brightening it up with really bright orange, but it was just because it was such a dark space, and obviously with nice spotlights fitted and everything, it just lifted the whole place up, and I thought it looked pretty good. And just to briefly show you the loft, there's the old loft hatch there. And then this was the loft all done out for storage. As I say, we only took over a third of the loft space, but it was just huge. And I put this insulating foil up just mainly to stop all of the mortar from the back of the tiles falling down into this area. This was quite a nice clean space now, and it just gave a really nice sturdy storage area. And then just looking down the new loft hatch into the hallway there. As I say, there's not a lot to show you on the bedrooms. This is just the master bedroom. Quick lick of paint and tidied up a bit. Again, living room, not a lot to report other than doing the cupboard thing. It was mainly a case of just giving it a bit of a lick of paint. New window went in as well. And it was a really nice, comfortable space once it was all done. Difficult to see there, but you can just about make out the nook where I've got all the AV gear and some backlighting in it as well. The bathroom obviously was a disgusting kitchen when we first moved in, and now we've got a nice size bathroom with a full size bath, a double shower, the toilet and the hand wash basin there as well. Ignore the weird angle of this, it's because I've got two photos kind of glued together. And then finally, obviously, the kitchen started life as a bathroom and a stairwell, basically. And this was the final kitchen all done. I fitted slate floor tiles, just a fairly basic B&Q kitchen, but we've got an oven and hob. The boiler is boxed in this cupboard here. We've got an integrated fridge freezer, a little area to kind of have breakfast and whatnot at the end there. Plus, we've even got room for a dishwasher as well. And yeah, that was it, all done and dusted, which is a good job because very shortly after I finished, this little fella came along and it was time to move somewhere a little bit bigger. And I'll tell you about that in the next video. Remember, if you go onto my Patreon, I'll give you a full breakdown of all the costs for this entire project. You'll find out whether or not I managed to do it on budget, and I'll show you those structural engineer plans for the loft as well, just so you can see what structural engineer plans look like. I hope you enjoyed that. Wait till you see some of the next projects that are coming up. Take care, folks, and I shall see you next time. Tatty bye!